cool. Um, Welcome back. I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you haven't dropped yet. You still have that right and that ability to. I hope you don't, but I also don't want you to be miserable here with me all semester long. Um, I wanted to start off if anyone has any questions or concerns or comments about the course, if you want to give me some feedback on Zoom. I'm always trying to learn and improve. I'm one of those weird people that's never content. So if you have any feedback, like you saw something really good in another class that was on Zoom that you're like, oh, that was really cool, and you want to share that, I don't get to go to all your classes with you, thankfully, but also it's not my job. So I don't know what you experienced. So if there's something you want to share there, or if you have any feedback on Canvas or questions or concerns, please, you can raise your hand in the screen or hit the raise hand button. I'd like to hear from you if you have anything to share. Don't all jump at once. Megan, you good? Yeah. Okay. Kayla? Okay. I'm just going to look in the camera for a second. You'll think I'm looking you directly into the eyes. I can't see if you raise your hand if I do that. So, okay. All right. So here's kind of what I have today. If you have a question at any time, raise your hand, hit the raise hand button, or throw it in the chat. I will do my best to keep my eyes on the chat. If I completely miss it, just unmute yourself and be like, objection, or no, just get my attention however you need to. I have a few announcements I want to go over first, and then once we're done with that, we will, I'm going to talk a little bit about nervousness and anxiety, and then we are going to kind of go over the communication process model. So I'm going to spend some time talking about chapter 1 today. Hopefully you have the book, or it's at least coming soon. And so that's kind of the plan, and will probably be normal class time. But yeah, sound good so far? Okay. So my first announcement is the syllabus quiz was due today, but I realized I put a quiz timer on it, and I did not mean to do that. I think I thought about it in the future, but I never went back and changed it. So because I told you in the video, the start here video, that it's supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be no tricks, no whatever, I was not happy with the fact that there was a timer on it. So I changed it into where if you took it and you got a grade you were not happy with, which most of you, you're totally fine with that, but like if you're like, man, I missed one, you can go back and retake it, and what it will do is it will record your highest grade. So the goal of that was just to get you familiar with the syllabus, not to challenge you, anything like that. So if you missed one or two or three, whatever, you can go back and take it. It's open until 9:20 a.m. on Friday, so you can go like right after class and do it. I don't want that to be something where you miss points or start class off in a weird way, because I said it's going to be easy and then I timed it. So that was the first thing. The next thing is in the announcements tab, there's a link to a SurveyMonkey survey. Most of you have done that. There's about 4 or 5 of you who still need to do that. It's just a student introduction survey where you're going to share your name and some information about you, just to help me get to know you a little bit. Basically, if we had a class, I'd have you fill out a form, but also we would have some small talk that would help me get to know you, what you're thinking, feeling about the class. And so this is my way of doing that. So if you have not done that, please do. I do ask if you will give me permission to either call you or text you this semester. And if you have given me permission to text you, or if you choose to give me permission to text you, I will shoot you a text just saying thank you for filling it out. And I do that so that you have my phone number. I want you to know that I am here for you. If you have a question, I don't want you to panic. I know that sometimes, especially for some of you, this online learning experience is feeling very isolated, and you feel very maybe separated, distant. And so my hope in texting you and giving you my phone number is to make you feel less distant for this class. Good? Okay. So on, just to kind of go, this is business on Canvas. There, I believe everyone I believe everyone has completed the profile picture update. I went and I was able to check. And so I know there were some issues with that. So thank you for being patient and completing that. So it looks good. I can see your faces. So that's good. So that'll be nice for forms. The quiz, like I said, if you have till 9:20 a.m. on Friday to retake it, and if you want to improve your grade, I think there is one or two of you who might not have done that yet. So this is a little bit of grace. First week, you're welcome. And then keep in mind on Friday, you have due the 3 things about me video. And it's been kind of fun, like seeing you in your elements. And some of you I can tell are probably very social media savvy just because you know like how to hold the camera and all that. But it's also interesting just hearing about your life in your own element. Normally I hear about students' lives in a classroom, which it seems like it's a distant place, but you're actually like living your life. So, but go ahead and post your video there by Friday or on Friday. It'll be like a class equivalent assignment. Also is the haiku, the nervousness haiku. A couple of you have already done that. Those of you who've done that, what have you thought of the TED Talks, of the ones that you watched? You like them? Do you like the one where he's playing his song for you? That one's my favorite. It's my absolute favorite. So yeah, that one should be a fun assignment. It's super chill. Seriously, you're gonna watch 3 great TED Talks, which is way better than hearing me talk for 45 minutes. And then you're gonna write a haiku. It's just a poem. And I do that because so often in our educational journeys, we have been trained to not be creative. We have been like pulled out of our naturally creative abilities. And so I want you to tap into that, but I also want you to express how you're feeling about this class. And so it's just kind of a twofer. It seems really silly, but there's actually a lot of value to it. If it wasn't valuable, I wouldn't be doing it. So be sure you do that Friday. I'll set it for the due date to be like after class time or the due times, because you should be able to do that during class time if you absolutely pushed it, the class equivalent assignment that is. And then we do not, last order of business, we do not have class on, we don't have a synchronous class on Friday. We're only doing Monday and Friday. Next week, Monday is a holiday, so there is no class. So that means next week, our only class on Zoom will be Wednesday. So if you need some time this week on Friday or next week on Friday, if you want to have talk to me about anything, though I will have virtual office hours. We can either do a phone call or set up a Zoom meeting. So I am available during that time. It's not me saying I'm not here. It's me saying I think the best use of your time would be to do these assignments. Fair? So that means our next class will be Wednesday, and by next class, you need to read, I believe it's chapters 1 and 4. I'm going to check real quick. I don't want to say the wrong things and someone to be taking me at my word right now. Yeah, so it's chapter 1 and 4, and do the response assignments. If you haven't already opened your book, please do that. I want you to spend some time like just understanding how the author writes, understanding the style, so that I don't think it's a very hard read. I think it reads pretty easily for a textbook. But I've also, when I was a student at APU, we used a 9th edition of this textbook, and now we're on the 13th. So I've been around it for 14 years or so. I've been seeing this book. But I want you to get familiar with it. And just a tip is, if you're crunched on time, what I always recommend is read what the assignment is asking for. Then go to your textbook. And one of the cool things about your textbook is at the end of each chapter, there is a summary about it. Erica, question, go.
Yeah, I was wondering for the responses that are due Wednesday the 9th, is it one response for both chapter 1 and 4, or is it separate responses for the separate chapters?
It's 2 different responses. So they're set as 2 different assignments.
Okay.
So if you look on Canvas, it should show you that, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how to lower your hand right now, so I'll figure that out shortly. But the weird things you have to learn as a teacher. Yeah, so take some time. That's really cool is your textbook has a summary at the end of the chapter. I always recommend reading the summary and seeing what makes sense to you, what doesn't make sense to you. I know that sounds weird, like I'm going to read a chapter summary at the end. Read over the key terms, read over the things that stand out to you in that way, and then go back to the beginning and start reading the chapter. And what that allows you to do is as you read the headings and the subheadings of the chapters, as you go into it, you can be like, no, I really understand this. And you can kind of like speed read where you read the first and last sentence of each paragraph to make sure you grasp it. If there's an area that's really interesting, dive into it. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. There we go. Cool. Cool. I think that's all my announcements. Any questions, concerns? Is Canvas set up in a way for you that's somewhat easy to navigate and understand? Or at least our course? Okay, cool. Okay, so I want to take just a few minutes here to talk about nerves and anxiety. This class, regardless of your personal journey with anxiety and stress management and all of that, this class would cause anybody and probably everybody to have some kind of anxiety. And that's normal. And I don't mean anxiety. Let me tell you this. I had a student, it was my first year of teaching at APU, and she was an international student. I'm trying to remember her name, but she was from Russia. I remember that. And her very first speech, she came in and she stood in the doorway of the class and she would not come into the classroom. And I remember looking at her, I'm like, hey, are you going to come in? She goes, no. I'm like, why are you not going to come in? She goes, because I'm not going to give my speech today. And I'm like, but it's an assignment and you're here, you should do it. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't talk in front of people. Now, nonetheless, like half the class is already in the class while she's standing in the door and we're having this conversation. I'm like, well, I think you're going to do great. I think you're already talking in front of the class right now. So why don't you go take a walk and come back and you can give your speech? And so she did. But do you guys know I don't know what the term is, but the stage performers where they like kick their legs up and then like bring their knees and kick their legs up and how they kick their legs out. She literally gave her speech while swinging her leg back and forth where it basically became perpendicular with the floor, the whole speech. She was so nervous. That was her first speech and she did it. She survived. I have never had anyone pass out, black out, or throw up while having a speech. I have had a student who passed out after class and we had to call 911, but that wasn't because of a speech. That was because of health stuff. But I want you to know if you're feeling nervous, that's because you're human. If you're feeling anxious, that's because you want to do well. And so your book uses a term called positive nervousness. And so if you're feeling anxious or nervous about giving a speech in this class, good. That means you want to do well. That means you care. And that gives me the impression that you are going to do well. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I know that on top of that, there's other anxiety. And I'm not trying to discredit that. In my life, in my household, we wrestle with a lot of different things of that nature. So if you are feeling nervous or anxious, please feel free to communicate with me. I'm not going to call you out. I'm not going to humiliate you. I will work with you. You will still do assignments, but we will take baby steps. So sound good? Okay. Right, I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint to help explain one of the first theories and models called the communication process model. So let me go ahead and do that. So have any of you before, why is it doing that? There we go. Have any of you before this class heard of the communication process model? A couple of you. Okay, cool. So let me set this where I can see it. I want to see all of you more than the PowerPoint. So this is the communication process model. And so if you look at what your textbook shows you, it shows you this image. Have any of you made it to the textbook to see this image yet? This is what the communication process model is according to your author. I wonder if I can, ooh, this is cool. All right. According to your author, it's this girl who's photoshopped and clearly not to scale or ratio with this guy. Makes sense, right? Really, really good art. I actually have a better illustration. And they use all these terms, but it doesn't really make sense. And it's really awkward because she's like trying to avoid him and he's awkwardly staring at her. Fair? Okay. Normally, I would show you off my amazing drawing abilities by drawing you stick figures to explain this, but I stayed up way too late last night making you a excellent PowerPoint. So I hope you enjoy. This is the main character of this story. You getting the suspense yet? You feeling it? This character's name is Boy. Boy is an APU student. Boy is a freshman APU student and very, very excited to do classes. So the next person that you need to know in this story is this individual. Anyone want to take a guess on what this individual's name is? You can unmute yourself and chime in. It's okay.
Girl.
Wrong, but I totally set you up for that. Her name is Sue. So Boy and Sue, not a boy named Sue. If you get the reference, that's extra points for you. If you don't get the reference, just type in Boy named Sue and enjoy the song. Now, we want to make this more realistic, and because I am learning how to use clip art really well, like in 2020, right? That's what a pandemic does. Boom, let's give them some color. That was impressive, right? PowerPoint skills. Yeah. Okay, so we got Boy, we got Sue, and what we need to know about them is they are our sender and our receiver in this communication process model. So there's a sender and a receiver. Sometimes it'll be a speaker and a listener. Sometimes people will refer to it as speaker and listener. But in this case, the model I prefer is always sender and receiver. And if you understand football, it makes sense. Your quarterback is your sender, and then your receivers are your receivers, right? They're literally passing something. So just to give you another term, we're in a situation. A situation describes what it is. In this case, I made Boy and Sue. I adapted their situation to be like ours. They are in a Zoom class. So this is Boy, this is Sue. The situation, they're in Zoom class together. And they're both freshmen. Let's just say they're in first year seminar. You guys have first year seminar on Zoom? Yeah. Hey, we want you to meet this really amazing group of your peers virtually, right? So the situation is this. And so, but Boy catches Sue out of the corner of his eye. Literally, because it's a screen, the corner of his eye. And it's like, I want to introduce myself to Sue. And so how does he do that? He does that through a channel. A channel is a form of communication. So in this case, the channel is the Zoom class. I know my PowerPoint art is just, it's amazing you right now. My wife, I showed her what I did and she goes, you really spent that long making that? And I go, yeah. She's like, I have 3 kids. I said, fair. So a channel will change. So for us in our lives, one channel that we are probably missing is face-to-face communication. So the channels is that the sender and the receiver are looking at each other face-to-face. Other channels can be smoke signals, text messaging, phone calls, video messaging. It could also be through pre-recorded things on YouTube or television, like just like channels on your TV, right? So the channel changes, but there's always a sender and a receiver, and there's a situation. You guys following? Is the visual helping? Was it worth way too much of my time? Okay, good answer. I'll pretend you said yes. So we have the channel, we know the situation. So here's what happened. The sender, boy, is going to send Sue a message. So the thing that the sender sends is a message. And because the channel here is Zoom, and in this case, Zoom chat, that is how boy is going to send Sue the message. You following? The message is whatever boy sends. In this case, it's going to be a text. Other forms of message could be nonverbal. It could be kind of like a head nod. It can be a laugh. It could be a smile, right? There's different ways you can send messages. And so we know that boy sent Sue a message, and then he will begin to wait for feedback. Feedback is the response that he gets for his message, and he's still going to wait for feedback, and then Sue is going to give feedback. Make sense? So feedback, it can be verbal, it can be obviously text, it could be nonverbal, it could be positive, it could be negative. So in this class, in our situation, the feedback you give me is by nodding at the screen, by giving me a thumbs up, let me know that you're there, or raising your hand like, hey, stop, question. Make sense? So your feedback here could be your nonverbal as far as your body language, but it also can be using the different emojis and hand raising and slow down, speed up comments and things. Make sense? Cool. Any questions so far? No. Okay, super academic. Yes, this is a university class. So now here's the thing. There's this next thing that comes in. It's called interference. So maybe boy's little sister pops in the background, like just like in Cameron's situation. There's a child in the background right now. That is an example of interference. It's really timely, so it's actually awesome. Something that many of us have and will, or at least fear we will experience, is a pet jumping into the screen like Sue is experiencing in her screen. Interference is something that does just that. It interferes with the sending or receiving of message or feedback. So interference can be internal or external. So interference, internal interference could be you're tired, you're hungry. It could be that you have to go to the bathroom really bad, or it's really cold or really hot. If you're in a classroom, a lot of times there's the fluorescent lights above, and it could be the flickering of the lights is giving you a headache. So internal interference can be happening with the sender and or the receiver. And so right now, a lot of times you'll know if I have internal interference because my eyes will kind of go over here, or I'll lose track. I go on a rabbit trail. But also you might not know, like maybe I have to go to the bathroom. Maybe I'm exhausted. Maybe I'm worried about something that's going on outside of this Zoom call. So that is a form of interference. And so as listeners, you also have that going on. And the fact that you are at your homes and all that, it means there's more external interference than if we were all in a classroom together. So external interference is, like we talked about, someone interrupting you. It's a loud noise. It's anything of that nature. It could be your animal jumping on your lap or your computer. Here's the thing, and why knowing interference is important. You are going to be giving some speeches this semester, actually most of your speeches on Zoom. And if you haven't experienced it yet, teaching on Zoom is very awkward. Not because it's hard to teach, but for people like me, I rely on the feedback and the room feel and situation. And so when we're all in a room together, I kind of get a feel for where we're at. I am actually making eye contact with you. I'm not looking at a camera. But what I'm trying to help you understand is when you're up here and you have the chance to speak, and a majority of people aren't looking at you, or they're looking down, or they're looking away, it's not because they don't care. It's not because they're not listening. It's not because they're not engaged. There could be a million things going on, and that all goes back to interference. That could be maybe they are taking notes on their computer or on a notepad, and that's why they're looking away. Maybe there's something crazy going on in their house or their situation wherever they're at. Um, because we cannot, for most of us, we cannot separate from our homes to do class, there's more interference than normal. Does that make sense? So I want you to understand interference because it is our reality. We are going to experience constant interference. So back to your author's model. So when you see the academic visual of this, we know that in this case, the girl on the left is the sender. The guy on the right is the receiver. She is sending a message. In this case, we can say it's face to face. The message could be as simple as hi, or are you okay? Or did you go to class? Did you take notes? The channel we talked about face to face. The feedback could be him nodding. It could be him saying yes. So it could be verbal. It could be nonverbal. And the situation is maybe they're in class together. Or they're at an office meeting. So is this making sense? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop screen share. Any questions on this so far?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What was the channel in that?
In the authors or in mine?
In the authors.
The channel could be face to face
Okay.
because they were kind of face to face the way they were photoshopped on. But I mean, it could be anything.
Okay.
So yeah, channel, like ways we've communicated, different channels have been text messaging, through Canvas, through email, through Zoom. Make sense?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Any questions on the communication process model? Awesome. What was I going to talk about next? That's all I got. Gauging the timing of everything is it's a new challenge for me. So normally we draw it out, but if I were to ask you to describe the communication process model to me, would you be able to do it? Okay, Erica, go. You can ask someone to help you too.
Okay. So like the whole thing from beginning to end?
Yeah, just yeah.
Okay, so there has to be two people. One person is the sender, one person is the receiver. The sender has a message to send that could be verbal or nonverbal, depending on what the situation is or what they want to try and get across. The receiver receives that message to the channel, which the channel can also be anything from text to phone call to face-to-face. And once the receiver receives a message through the channel, they then give feedback, which can also be verbal or nonverbal. And through all this, there can be interference, which could be they're not in a good mood, they're hungry, they have to use the restroom, or it can be a physical interference where like a family member comes in or they're interrupted by someone or something like that.
Awesome. Well done.
Thank you, Marley. Thank you.
So what you'll learn is every class has an encourager. So whenever you're speaking, look for that person, and then they'll carry you through. So here's what I want to do. I want to ask a question that communication scholars argue about, and I'm going to put you into a couple breakout groups just to give you a chance to meet some of your classmates so that they're not just a small square or a rectangle on your screen. So I'll give you a few minutes. We have plenty of time for our class time. So actually take a few minutes once you get into your group, introduce yourself, talk about majors. If you're like, think you want to be friends, I guess you can exchange information. But it actually might not be bad to at least exchange emails so you'd have someone to reach out to in the class. But I want you to talk about the question, is there ever a time where we are not communicating? Is there ever a time where we are not communicating? So some scholars will say that some communication scholars, let me put that, will say that we are always communicating. Some will say, no, there's times where we're not communicating. So I want to know, do you think we're always communicating, or do you think there's times when we're not communicating? Does that make sense? Sounds like a really weird question, but think about it. Think about your daily life. Think about who you're with, who you're not with. Think about all of that. And I want you in your groups to think about, is there a time where we're ever not communicating? And so I'll give you, let's do 8 minutes or so in your groups and take some time just to get to know people in the class, and we'll go from there. So just give me a second here to set it up. And I'm just going to do it random. Okay. Enjoy. I'll see you guys back in about, we'll come back here about 10:02. Sound good? I'll give you a notice too. welcome back. I think we're waiting on a few more of you. So nice having like human interaction. Yeah, does anyone feel like they met a new friend? Yeah, the proper thing would be to be like, yeah, because everyone else is watching you right now. Later you can be like, mm-mm. So cool. Well, I plan to, as we go on, to do some more breakouts like that because it's way better talking in a small group and actually being able to talk than listening. So I want to hear what did you guys determine on whether or not we're always communicating or not?
Um, I know that I said that we're constantly communicating. I think it's like 90% of communication is actually nonverbal. So even if I'm sleeping, I'm communicating to another person that I'm tired. If I'm just looking at somebody when they're talking, I'm communicating that I'm listening, or maybe that I'm not interested by my facial expressions. Like even the movements of your hands or the placement of your feet communicate something. So I argued that we're constantly communicating at every moment.
And did your group agree with you or disagree with you?
And they agreed with me.
Okay. Anyone argue the opposite or anyone talk about the opposite?
I did actually. I was saying that maybe those who like made up the idea, or not made up, but like theorized that we're always communicating.
It's all made up.
Right? That was like maybe in the 90s or earlier. I don't know. But I feel like as technology is improving and there's like more ways to communicate, it gets a little more confusing. Like for text messages, if you're not getting a response or whatever, it could be for like a bunch of different reasons. Like if you live alone and your charger died or like you lost your charger or something, and you just like can't get to the phone, it's like, I don't know, I just feel like there's no communication going out. Like people might interpret your lack in messages differently, like, oh, they hate me, or oh, they're like depressed or whatever. I don't know. But I feel like there is lack of communication there.
Okay. Maddie, go ahead.
I would argue that like lack of a response is a communication in itself. Like if you're not getting a response, that you're communicating that either that person is in trouble, they like can't get to the phone, or they're communicating maybe they don't want to respond, and so that like interprets a different communication. Well, why don't they want to respond to me? Or so like thinking all those things of why that person's not responding, or the possibilities why that person's not responding, is communicating something. Like if their phone died, like it communicated they couldn't get, like they didn't have the time to get to the charger in time, or like they're communicating something even without responding. And I think that's part of nonverbal.
I actually think there's two different elements that we're talking about here is yes, I agree when we say, hey, my phone died and my mom texted me 17,000 times. Is that just me? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm 30 something years old and my mom still texts me every day. Are you alive? Are you good? She doesn't say that, but that's why she texts me. But I would say that if you did not charge your phone and it died and you did not have a charger, that is a form of communication. It's either talking about your situation you're in or a level of responsibility for you or a lack of planning and preparation on your behalf. Now, as far as what the other people think you're communicating, that's a whole different theory. Because you're right. If I send a text message or an email, especially if we're going back and forth and all of a sudden there's a delay, did I make them mad? Are they done with me? Did they fall asleep? Like there's all these different things. That's a whole different form of, or that's a whole different conversation. But I'm one of the people who say that we are never not communicating. So we are always communicating. You don't have to agree with me. It's not going to affect your grade either way. But you know, it's really weird. And if you don't have children, which I'm assuming is most of you, but when you see your child sleep, there's something that brings kind of a weird peace about that. And you're like, thank God they're finally asleep. But other than that, it's they're communicating, like the way they lay down, it says they're safe. Maybe they're warm or they're cold. Like the number of nights that my wife will go in and she'll be like, oh, I opened their window, I turned their fan on, or I pulled a blanket up on them because of something that they were doing and how they were laying, they were communicating. It was all nonverbal. I don't know if any of you have experienced sleepwalking or night terrors, but there's a form of communication as well. Snoring, in my opinion, is a form of communication. That means you are tired. So if you want to talk about that, but I also think even when you're home alone, you are communicating. It's just, is anyone receiving that communication? That's the thing. What you do, how you do things. If you're home alone and someone comes back and the house is super clean, you through your actions have communicated something. Does that make sense? Cool. So any other thoughts? Cool. We'll go ahead and wrap up class. Please, please, please do not forget about your Canvas assignments. If you want to redo the syllabus quiz, you have until 9:20 a.m. on Friday to do that. Again, I'm sorry that the timer was on there. That was not my intention to stress you out. I wanted to make it super easy. Thank you all for updating your Canvas profile pictures. Please don't delay the video recording or the nervousness assignment. I do want those on Friday. The one is your class equivalent assignment. So the due time should be around 10:15. So if you even wait till Friday, you have an hour carved out, hopefully, for that. It shouldn't take you seriously. Instead of scrolling on social media or whatever you do, just watch the videos. And writing a haiku is not that labor intensive unless you are like me and very perfectionistic in how you want to communicate things at times. And then be sure you start reading chapters 1 and 4. Don't delay. Don't wait until Tuesday. Start now. At least start chapter 1 now and do the assignment. The assignments are not meant to be hard or difficult. They're meant to serve as an accountability that you've read the text and that you're understanding the key points to it. And they are your quiz equivalent assignments. So if it makes you think and if it makes you have to look and kind of look back at the text, that's the purpose. And as we move on in the class, I'm going to lecture less from the book. Like today was more book focused in what we talked about, and then talk more extra in addition to. Sound good? All right. If you're good, go in peace. If you want to stick around, ask questions, talk, I am here.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Have a good one. Hello. I'm going to stop the recording.